let's talk about your formative years. You know, where did you grow up, and kind of what made you you?
Well, first, let me say that I wish I was one of those doctors or somebody else that you had on the show. And I am no longer a member. So I want to just make that straight for the record. I grew up in both sections of Queens, Ozone Park and Howard Beach. And I was come from a broken home and lived with my father in Ozone Park, and my mother lived in Howard Beach. And I don't know, I'm sure you heard from other people that back then at that time, you could find a social club on any corner of that neighborhood. Yeah. And, you know, as a result of that, as a young guy and you know, many young guys, and it's unfortunate that we kind of look for like father figures. Yeah. If your father really isn't stepping up to the plate as a father, you look for a father figure, or you look for somebody, you know. Yes. And you know, seeing these guys out there in the street, you kind of you know, that's what impresses a young guy, and you know, that's how these things start. They start seeing flashy clothes and cars. Back then, everybody was in a suit. You know, it was a different time, different era. And you know, at least for me, I admired people like that, and instead of admiring the local fireman or what have you, I looked up to the wise guy and tried to mimic them, you know. And it's funny because a lot of guys won't call themselves wannabes, and they don't like that term. But at one point, I guess we were all wanted to be something. So we were all at a young age a wannabe. Yeah. And we all who got involved in that life at one point in our lives were wannabes. And just a side note, a funny thing is that someone once, was a woman, once called me a wannabe, and it was at the time that I was 100% in that life. And I laughed to myself, and I had told another guy, Johnny Sideburns, and he said, "What do you want to be? You are." So, you know, but anyway, going back to my younger days in Ozone Park, that area was entrenched with wise guys and guys in the life, and particularly the Gambino family. I mean, that was their neighborhood, both those neighborhoods. Although in Howard Beach, you had Vecchia Musso lived there, you had Johnny Gotti lived there, you had Joe Messina. So you had bosses of other families that even lived within blocks of each other, and they were around. You know, you had a mix of all the families there, but the Gambinos were very, very prominent in Ozone Park and Howard Beach, and we became friendly with John Jr. You know, I was a young guy, and my cousin and I were going to the club. You know, they had a club. They had actually two clubs. You had John's father had a club on 101st Avenue, and